Welcome back to another episode of the RockFit Files. I'm Rocky Snyder, and in the house with me, I've got Dr. Dan Ritchie, and I say doctor because he's got his PhD in kinesiology from Purdue University. And Dan is one of the founders of the Functional Aging Institute. And this is a group that is certifying fitness professionals in different aspects of training aging population, brain health, and a whole bunch more. And so they offer these conferences, and especially now that COVID restrictions are lifting, hopefully this will be underway more in person, but they've got some great online courses to take and so on. So I thought I'd have Dan come on to the RockFit Files, and we're just going to talk about gerontology and fitness and training the aging population and a whole bunch more. So Dan, Doc, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love doing this stuff. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I say you went to Purdue University, still in that neck of the woods there in Indiana. And what got you from being a trainer and maybe certified strength and conditioning specialist, certified with the NASM and others, getting, of course, your doctorate there with kinesiology, and you minored in gerontology, as you told me before the show. But what got you from being a trainer to establishing the Functional Aging Institute?
Yeah, great question. We could probably spend the whole show just on that. But, I was working on my master's degree at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater and training at a big box gym. Now, this was about 99 to 2002. And I was at an early cusp of seeing the baby boomers coming, right? I mean, who were my personal training clients in 2000? Well, they were baby boomers, mostly in their 40s and 50s. But every once in a while, I had a traditional senior come along in their 60s and 70s. And I just really enjoyed training all these clients. And what did they all have in common? It was less body vanity, less weight loss, less six-pack abs, and more, hey, I just want to keep downhill skiing in my 50s and 60s. I had a 70-year-old who he's like, I can't tee up a golf ball. I'm an 8 handicap, but I can't get to my own toes anymore, right? Like I can't tie my own shoes. This is getting ridiculous. Well, he'd had multiple joint replacements, and I just fell in love with training those clients. And I decided this is what I want to do with the rest of my career, and kind of left strength and conditioning behind and sport performance, and came to Purdue University, got a PhD, focused on balance and looking at how do we prevent falls and how do we improve balance. And I all of a sudden realized I didn't know we were facing an epidemic of fall related injuries for people over the age of 65. And so that really then sort of led to, Cody and I met at Purdue University, and we're like, the fitness industry is just ignoring people over the age of 60 and not aware that like the biggest population in US history is all turning 60 by 10,000 people a day. And in the next 10 years, it's going to be 10,000 people turning 70 every day. And the fitness industry is still not paying any attention to it, right? I mean, it's focused on 20s and 30s and, vanity and aesthetics and looks and weight loss. And so that really led to the Functional Aging Institute and us saying, hey, not only do we have to get the fitness industry to pay attention, but we're going to have to train them, we're going to have to educate them, we're going to have to get people ready to train this massive population. And now here we are in 2021, and all baby boomers are over the age of 55. And we now have over 100 million people over the age of 55 in the United States. And still the fitness industry is not focused on them, right? The fitness industry is still focused on youth and fitness and performance and sports, and all of those things are good, and it should focus on those things. But we realize it continues to miss a huge opportunity in what I like to call sort of the active aging and really our aging population. Our country's getting older, right in front of us, and the fitness industry doesn't need to segment out people over 50. In fact, it needs to have more specialized programs, more options to really help people in that age group.
I'm really glad you bring that up because in terms of age groups, it's the easy way out to just bracket an age group and just say this is what you're going to be doing, but it doesn't take into consideration the activity level of the individuals in that group. And I say that because we as a nation are aging faster than ever before
Yep.
because we're not moving as much. We've been so inactive. That's what speeds up the aging process. And if it didn't, if you think it's just chronological age, then we wouldn't have 70 and 80-year-olds or octogenarians running marathons or doing triathlons, right? This is active people on a regular basis that have been doing it as a part of their lifestyle that have retarded or slowed down the aging process. So that's something that I would love to talk about, because how do you address an aging population but don't necessarily segregate them based on their chronological age?
Yeah, well, one of the things we like to say is it's not really about age, it's about functional ability, right? And so I think people make the mistake of saying, "Oh, well, you're 60, so therefore uh, throw 60 out. It's this is your functional ability, so therefore you're having trouble with or you're able to do this, right?" So and they're not equal. We make this mistake of being, "Oh, well, you're in your 70s, so therefore you probably can't do." No, there's no, if you're in your 70s, you might be at a extremely high level of fitness or you might be frail and anywhere in between. I mean, you could be someone who's thinking about moving into a nursing home or someone that's out water skiing, right? I mean, and why is there such a huge gap? Well, we know there's a huge gap because of fitness and sedentary living and lifestyle and all these sort of things. And so I tell people you could have a really, really old client who's 46 years old,
Yes.
right? Or you could have a 78-year-old who you're like, age is not the factor. It's they can do anything in my gym. And so we have to realize, sure, are there some physiological changes with age? Of course. A 75-year-old isn't going to recover as fast as a 25-year-old, right? And so if we're not careful, we can wind up, with chronic injuries just by beating someone up too much, right? A 25-year-old might be able to respond, recover, and come back and work hard the next day, whereas a 75-year-old we have to be a little bit smarter with. But functional ability wise, there's a huge spectrum. And so I think we make a mistake when we're like, oh, you train seniors, right? And I always air quote that word because, well, what's a senior? Right? I mean, you could have I say I caution people all the time, Rocky, like if you call a 65-year-old woman a senior, you better be ready for her to punch you in the mouth because she might find that term offensive, right? Because she's not a senior. She doesn't think of herself as a senior. Her mom is a senior, right? And her mom is 88 years old. So we have to be really careful about labeling and putting people in categories because you could have a 58-year-old client who moves and feels and performs like they are a senior, right? And so I tend to think of seniors as people who are 75 and older, but keep in mind, even they're not all equal, right? I mean, one 75-year-old might be competing in triathlons and another 75-year-old is struggling to just walk around the block. And so
Right.
that functional ability is a huge gap. And so we like to say, very simply, we think it all comes down to really some basics in life, right? We all have things we need to do, we have things we like to do, and we have things we really want to do, right? Every day we have things we get up and we need to do, right? We need to get dressed, we need to bathe, we need to, prepare some food, have a meal. There's basic needs we have to do, right? But nobody says, man, I had a great day today. I cooked myself lunch and I took the trash out, right? I mean, that's not really living. It's the like to do and want to do stuff that defines sort of our quality of life, right? Like I took a walk, I took my dog for a walk, I went to the park, I did some bird watching, I read a book, I went to a concert. There's like to do and want to do things. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, what sort of functional ability do you need to be able to do that stuff? Right? Like playing golf and, going out to lunch with your friends and taking your dog for a walk. These things have a level of functional ability. So we think that's kind of the critical thing we need to be looking at as people age.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because as I have no trouble slamming our industry, because I think if we don't look at what's wrong, how are we going to know how to repair it or how to improve it? And one of the things that I feel needs to be changed is the one size fits all modality of fitness programming. I mean, there was a time, Dan, you probably remember, where the big health clubs were really trying to get into kids' fitness. And what did they do? They took the grown up circuit machines and they just simply miniaturized them. And they had a kids' circuit training station with all these miniature circuit machines. I thought, this is the most absurd thing you could ask for. And then they did the same thing with the older population. They had that grandma and grandpa have to sit carefully in these machines and then just carefully exert force and so on. I'm going, why is it that we suddenly took this one model, which in my mind is already antiquated and isn't really truly functional, and we just tried to fit and jam every population imaginable into it, including athletes and so on? So the clients that come in and see me that are, say, in the grandparent range of life, they want to be able to get down to the ground and play with their kids or pick up the toys. They want to be able to keep up with the family when they go to Disneyland or wherever.
Yeah.
It's not like the mating game in the mating season when they were in their 20s and they were looking for the love of their life. So life goals and ambitions have to be addressed, or at least the programs we design need to reflect the period and the wants and the needs, like you say. So yeah, kudos to you for recognizing that as well. So what do you find in regards to like disconnects with, while we're on the subject, what other disconnects do you see within the fitness industry, the average, whether we're talking the big box gyms or personal training programs that you've seen that are missing the mark when it comes to the aging population?
Yeah, I think there are two big ones. I think one of them you kind of alluded to is we don't recognize the desires and the goals and the aspirations of sort of the third age of life, right? And so uh, we might say for some people, if you're over 50, it might be the second half of your life. Is the second half of your life going to be the best half of your life? So there's sort of this assumption, well, you're 67, so you probably don't really have a fitness goal like someone in their 30s might, and it's like, well, yeah, that could be true, but my fitness goal might be to continue downhill skiing with my grandkids, right? So it's a pretty high fitness level, but it's a very specific thing I want to do. And so I think sometimes we make the mistake purely out of lack of knowledge because the trainer is in their 30s or 40s themselves and they're not really aware of what could life look like in my 60s, 70s, or 80s. What are some of the things I might aspire to do? And so I think we have to start with recognizing the desires, goals, and aspirations of sort of that third age of life might look different, and that's okay. It's not about body composition or six pack abs or some of these sorts of things. It's about doing things. And I remember one of my clients at 80 years old, she had no fitness aspirations whatsoever, but she wanted to go to the Galapagos Islands. And so we broke it down. Joanne, what do you have to be able to do to go to the Galapagos Islands and not just go, but like enjoy the trip, right? Like
Mm.
this is going to be a trip of a lifetime. You're probably not going to do it again. In fact, she was already realizing I may be too late in getting ready for this. Am I going to miss this sort of bucket list trip? And then I think the other, core belief that I try to press on everyone really hard is the belief that people can be vital and vibrant and functional at any age. Because I think we think, well, yeah, but not at 82. Like I don't expect people to at any age. Like if they're still alive, they can be vibrant and functional. So at 102, if people say they want to train to do something or they still want to do some activity, they can still be vibrant and functional at any age. And I think that's a challenge for us because we've been sold a bill of goods that to be old is to be sick, to be old is to be weak, to be old is to be frail, to be old is to be something negative, right? And so when I say 85-year-olds can do amazing things, people are like, well, yeah, but they always have a hesitation. And I say, so we have to change that mindset and we have to realize that people can be vibrant and functional at any age. Now, I don't say 150 because people haven't done that yet, right? But I mean, we see people in their hundreds still doing amazing functional things, still riding their bike miles a day, still taking hikes and walks. And just saw this week a lady who on her 98th birthday climbed a mountain. It was like a 5,000-foot summit in the Appalachian. I'm like, great for her. She plans to do it again when she's 99 and 100, So we have to believe that people can do this stuff. And then that changes everything, right? How we approach training in our 70s and 80s gets dramatically different if we're thinking about, well, yeah, I can do anything in my 90s up to my early hundreds.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I had a client for several years that each year she was the oldest competitor at the Boston Marathon, and she qualified because it's a qualifying event, and she qualified every year. And it was just wonderful. She went 13 years in a row because she had 13 grandchildren, and she wanted to give them each a medal. I'm like, that's what a fantastic goal.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I love that. You brought up something that just triggered a memory of working with a client. He was in his early 70s, and he said something to me that really kind of pissed me off, but it had so much wisdom to it that I had to agree. And what he said was, Rock, what are you, like 40 something? And this was 10 plus years ago. And I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, I know what that is like. I've been 44, but you haven't been 74. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I haven't. You've experienced my age all the way through, but I have yet to experience that. That humbled me in so many ways, and it made me realize that, okay, I have to meet them where they are. And that was something I was trying to do, but it just further cemented that. And you expressed that in different terms, but in the same way. It's like, yeah, you know what? I don't know what 74 feels like. I'm hoping I will, and I'm hoping it's going to feel as good, if not better, than your 74. And that's the goal. So, and is that what you're doing at the Functional Aging Institute? Like, let's talk a little bit about FAI.
I mean, I had a client, Lance, who at 75, he said, this is just backwards, right? He's like, I feel better at 75 than I did at 70. And even at 65. And of course, he had to admit that, when I started training at 72, I never expected this, and he said, and let's be honest, I probably didn't take care of myself as well as I should in my 50s and 60s. And so at 72, I had some work to do. And that sort of gets to it's really never too late to start for people who are listening going, oh, well, shoot, I'm already 70, well, then get started today, because what are your 80s going to look like if you don't get started today, And so I always tell people it's really never too late to start. But at the same time, that's not an excuse for you to put it off another year. Like let's get going now. I'm already realizing, I probably have grandkids in my future in theory, right? I have 5 children. My 2 oldest are in their 20s, and, grandkids could come along at some point. And that's going to be a different functional ability. Like you said, getting down on the floor and crawling around, and the energy it takes to run around with a 2-year-old. I mean, my goodness. So I'm realizing like I have to be serious about this too, because as I get into my 50s and 60s, I have to be functional enough to do all the things a toddler grandchild's going to want me to do, and I'm going to want to do with them. Right. And the reality is, at the end of the day, it's really about me. I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking people are doing this for their grandkids. They're not doing it for their grandkids. They're doing it because they want to be active with their grandkids. They want to be the best grandparent they can be. It's very internal and personal. Like, I don't want to be that grandparent that misses out, that can't go hiking or can't, go do whatever the activity is. I don't want to be like, oh, I can't do that. I'm going to have to sit that one out.
Yeah. I like that. I often think in regards to programming through the years that it's similar to an investment, like a retirement investment, where in the early years, through your 20s and into your 30s, it was a very aggressive portfolio. And you were trying to build up as much as you could. And then as time gets closer to the maturation date, that portfolio went from aggressive to more conservative. And I see that being the case for the most part. I'm generalizing, of course, but when we're talking about fitness programming and strength and conditioning, yes, I will still have all of the buckets in an individual's program that may be in their 60s, 70s, and beyond that I had in their 20s. However, where the intensity or where the majority, the volume of the work that they're going to be doing in that program, it's going to be comprised completely differently. In their 20s and 30s, we're doing explosive, heavy lifts and so on with minimal amounts of flexibility, most likely.
Hmm.
But you know what I mean? But as we age into the later years, yes, I'm going to want to do some strength training to maintain bone density, to maintain strength levels, but we're doing it on a body that may have fluctuated in their activity level throughout those years. And if there's dips in activity, there's an increase in aging, in wear and tear and stiffening and so on. So the programming that we typically put together for the populations that are closer to retirement years, they don't look the same as others. And yet we have these facilities, these studios that are simply just taking their recipe and just putting the label of senior or golden or platinum or silver or
Right.
some other
Yeah.
color, and they're doing the same damn thing, only with a slightly tweaked intensity, and it drives me nuts. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't like when people's approach to senior fitness is just a lighter version, right? It's like, oh, well, our senior program is just light, It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because for some seniors, they're stronger than some of your 40-year-olds, right? And then for other seniors, it's no, it's they really need a basic strength training program. And so I think what we see is all the principles that apply to 20, 30, and 40-year-olds get even more complex as we get into our 60s, 70s, and 80s, because what happens is we get much more diversity. In our 20s and 30s, for the most part, people need strength training, they need some cardiovascular training, they may need some weight loss. I mean, it's pretty similar across the board unless somebody has a major injury. But as you get into your 60s, 70s, and 80s, some clients, it's, oh my goodness, you need a strength training program because you can barely get out of a chair, as opposed to another client who's got all the strength they need, but their balance is terrible, or their neuromuscular function is poor, or they have a degenerative knee condition that doesn't allow them to do certain exercises that. So I think it gets more complex, right? We have to get even more specialized. We can't just say, we're going to give you the 30-year-old version in a light way, because that doesn't fit, because you're saying, well, I'm having trouble getting out of a chair. I'm having trouble getting up and down from the floor. Um, I mean, we've had clients over the years who are cardiovascular machines. I mean, these are people who ran for 20, 30 years. Like your Boston Marathon person's a great example. We can have people like that. Their cardiovascular fitness is superb. They don't need cardio training. They're having trouble getting up and down from the floor. They can't do
Right.
that functional movement, which we're like, what? You appear to be super fit. Well, they've lost the ability, maybe the strength and even the range of motion to do some of those sort of things. And so I think we have to get more tailored, more specific to what is this person's functional need. And then we also have to think about what are their functional goals, right? So for a 25-year-old, we might say, well, yeah, we needed to do this exercise and this exercise. For a 75-year-old, might not even make any sense based on what they say they want to do, right? Like they don't throw a ball anymore. So why are we working on throwing movements? They don't play this certain sport anymore. So why are we, like for some 75-year-olds, I say there's literally no reason to do any jumping activities. But for other 75-year-olds, it might be imperative to do, right? If somebody says, I want to continue to play basketball or softball or downhill ski, then we better do some jumping activities. So we have to really match the program to what that person wants to do in life, and this is where I say we have to go back to, what is it you want to do, Rocky? So let's design your fitness program so you can do life better with greater ease, greater enjoyment, less joint pain, right? And so I can't give you the downhill skiing program if you aren't a downhill skier. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit, right? And so I think I think it's simple, but it's basically asking the fitness industry to be just a little bit smarter in how it programs for clients, right? Instead of just saying, hey, everyone is very much the same, realizing, you know what, the older we get, the more diverse we get. Our interests change, right? My dad is 73 years old. He plays on multiple softball teams. He competes in track and field events. Well, The next 72-year-old might be like, I don't play any sports. I just want to be able to, do X, Y, and Z. I want to be able to, go to Disneyland with the grandkids. I want to be able to take a walk. I want to be able to climb stairs. I want to be able to carry stuff. Doesn't care at all about running to first base or hitting a softball, so different goals for those people.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think you hit it pretty well. Is that we are stuck in the fitness industry with this unspoken kind of expectation or outcome when it comes to training and conditioning, and that is lean body mass,
Yep.
high endurance, and high strength. When that is just the furthest thing from the goals that most individuals are thinking of. Really, we are the providers of hope and happiness, right? If we could just boil it down, do you give
Hmm.
people hope that they continue to do what it is they're doing or aspiring to do new things? Do you provide them with hope? And in so doing, do you help to fertilize and grow happiness in their life? And that could be done in so many different respects, whether if it's for a person that does want to lift a certain amount of weight or does want to do an endurance activity or track and field, then yes, we've got to meet them where they are and cater to their direction. But I love you're talking about how diversified and how much more complex or much more involving the programs get as a person goes through life. And I'm just thinking of this giant mountain lake where the water begins, and there are all these streams and rivulets that flow down the mountain, and they all end up in so many different places. And it's that journey of life that's going down the mountain. Some will go into an aquifer and just stop there. Others will go and combine with others. So it's great. It's almost like the young programs or programs for those in the teens, 20s, 30s are, like I say, they can be very basic and you can hit all the major buckets. But as we get on in life, it's going to have to be a lot more specified. Like let's just talk about like fall prevention. I know that there's balance classes out there for senior, elderly, however we want to term the aging population. And a lot of those balance classes are just all about being storks and pelicans and standing on one leg. But
Right.
but in truth, I mean, that's just one little part of it. Can you balance on one leg? But how many times do you see grandma standing by the bus stop just balancing on one leg? That's not it. It's like, how do we get them to control their mass and their momentum when they lose their balance? And can they decelerate and stop themselves from falling to the ground? So fall prevention, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what do you do when we're talking about creating fall prevention programs?
Yeah. I should come back for a whole nother show because this is
Yeah.
my area of expertise. Falling, it's kind of crazy that the number one cause of accidental death is car accident from age 1 to 64. From 0 to 1, I think it's choking or suffocation, right, for infants, but from 1 to 64 it's motor vehicle accident. And there's got to be a joke in here somewhere because I know we make fun of, like, older drivers, right? But 65 and up, it's no longer motor vehicle accident, it's falling down, right? You're
Ah,
like, how is this the number one cause of accidental death as you get over the age of 65? um well, part of it is people over the age of 75 are having bad falls, right? They're falling and hitting their head in a way that essentially would kill any one of us, right? I mean, if you fell straight back and hit your head on concrete or a parking block in a parking lot, your likelihood of serious injury is pretty high. And this is what we're seeing happen. People are falling in their bathrooms and hitting their head on the bathtub or a countertop, and many of these falls are very, very preventable if people were trained how to maintain their center of mass. It's very much a, how do I stay upright? And we start to lose this with age. And the reason it's a complex thing, it's not just take a balance class. What we've seen is, for some people it's strength, for some people it's balance, for some people it's neuromuscular, for some people it's reaction time, for some people it's loss of sensation and touch in their feet. Like, if you
vision,
can't, yeah,
vestibular.
if you can't feel your feet and your vision has changed and your mind body awareness has declined, I mean, it's a loss in all of these systems. And so we have to really take a global approach to it and say, well, yeah, we got to get some more lower body functional strength for sure, but we also got to get some better sensation in your feet and some better body awareness of what are your feet telling you. Like when your feet tell you quickly you're off balance, your first reaction should be to take a step, right? When you and I lose our balance, our body knows very quickly, hey, you're losing your balance. You're about to wind up on the ground. You either need to get your hands out quickly or take a big step to recover. And so we don't fall as bad. And what we see with people over 75 is they actually fall much worse. They don't react well. They don't get their hands. I mean, it's like, why on earth did you catch yourself with your face? My body was not quick enough to get my hands out in front of me. And so even training people reaction time drills and how to get your hands up fast and speed of movement with your hands. And this is why even simple drills with people that can barely walk with a cane, let's work on their hand speed and catching and reaction and getting their hands out in front of them. Teaching people to take a step. Even if you still fall, if you take a big step, you're going to lessen your fall as opposed to falling like a tree face first. And so I think we have to, when we're designing programs, especially for anyone over the age of 70, we have to factor in really what I call a global approach to balance. So there's got to be some lower body functional strength. There's got to be some reaction time drills. There's got to be some balance activity drills. And those vary from gait pattern movements to center of gravity control to taking vision away to response, just all sorts of things. I'll give you an example. A client that came in to train with Cody, he wanted to go to this cave in Vietnam. I think it's called Ung Dong Long or something.
Yeah.
It's like the world's
Biggest one in the world.
biggest cave in the world, right?
Yeah.
And he realized, I don't think I have the balance to do the jungle hike to get to the cave. And Cody realized very quickly, yeah, he couldn't do a side to side shuffle. He couldn't walk across a room while turning his head. Like, well, how are you going to walk through a jungle if you can't turn your head while you're going? And of course, you know, tree branches are coming at you. There's obstacles. I mean, you got to be able to do a lot of stuff, right? It's dynamic balance. He trained him in about 6 months. You know, he was able to side shuffle and karaoke and, you know, run across the gym with his head turning and grab objects and do all sorts of stuff. And he did the hike to the cave very, very well and got the green light to go into the cave. The sad part of the story is his 49-year-old son-in-law didn't prepare, didn't train, and they got turned away when they got to the entrance of the cave, because if you don't do really well on the jungle hike, they don't let you go into the cave for, I think it's like a 3 or 5 day trip, because you can camp in there. And so I'm like, that's got to be the worst flight home of all time, right? Like, I've never been on the Super Bowl losing flight home, but that's got to be pretty tough to be on that flight home, to be like, I trained with Dr. Cody Sipe at the Functional Aging Institute to prepare for this thing, and my 49-year-old son-in-law, you know, tough break, wasn't prepared, had some cardiovascular issues, just the hike was too difficult for him. So balance is complex because there's endurance, right? If you get tired, does your balance go down? Absolutely. All of a sudden people are like, well, the parking block has never reached out and tripped anyone, but people are like, oh, I guess I must have just been tired and I didn't see the parking block or whatever. It's like, the parking block's been there. We know where it's going to be in the parking lot. It didn't reach out and trip you. But if you're a little bit tired, you're a little bit fatigued, your step height isn't quite what it should be because you're tired. Now, all of a sudden you stub your toe on it and your reaction time's not good. Your lower body strength isn't good. Guess what? You're going face down in the parking lot, and unfortunately you might be hurting something, you know, especially if you're carrying groceries in your hand, right? Now, all of a sudden you're going down with stuff in your hand and you're going to break a wrist or, you know, smash your face or whatever. And so we also have to think about all the different dynamic things we have to do in life. You know, that you mentioned the standing on one foot. There's nothing wrong with doing that stuff. That's fine. But that's typically not where people get in trouble, right? It's not like, oh, I was standing on one foot in my kitchen and I fell. Like, that's not what leads to it, right? It's stepping over something, stepping around something. I have to come in the garage and I've got to step and I'm carrying groceries in one hand. And I'm trying to open the door and I'm off balance and I've got to navigate one step and boom, I fall and I break my hip. Because guess what? I'm twisted. I'm turned sideways. I'm trying to get in the door. I'm doing something that's a little bit we have to do those weird movement patterns in the gym to prepare people for life. We can't just say, hey, do a step up or stand on one foot, you're good. Because that's not what we're having trouble with. We're having trouble with these rotational movements and complex movement patterns. And oh, a kid just ran out in front of me with a grocery cart as I'm trying. There's a lot going on, right? And so we have to think about all the different variables and throw all of those at people. And then we also have to think about, what if you have to do all that in the dark? That's where people really get in trouble, right? We take vision away. We challenge people. How do you control your balance if I take your sight away, if I take your vision away, if I ask you to close your eyes? You have to pay a lot more attention now to what your body's telling you, because our dominant sense for most of us is our vision, right? We trust what our eyes tell us. So let's take vision away. Well, what are your feet telling you? What's the rest of your body telling you? Are you starting to fall? So we have to train the other senses as well.
No, that's good you bring it up. Just prior to COVID, for a number of years, probably 7 or 8 years, we had contracts with our local hospital to teach strength and conditioning classes to the aging population, and we called it senior strength conditioning. We also were working with people living with Parkinson's. And interestingly enough, the movements that we did in the Parkinson's class were based on LSVT with big movement programs, Lee
Mm-hmm.
Silverman voice training, and because they were exaggerations of the gait mechanics, like you were just alluding to. It's like moving, stepping over the dog, stepping back, rotating left and right.
Yep.
We would turn the lights down low at times, and just in saying that, with the visual training for the listening audience, that our trainers are going, oh yeah, this is great, I'm going to go into next Monday morning and we're going to do all these movements with your eyes closed. That is a gigantic leap in progression. I would say that going from eyes open to completely removing your sight is way too much
Yeah.
at a time for most people. So what we typically do is close one eye and let's go down to two-dimensional space, close the opposite eye and see what the difference is between the two. Do they have better balance with a dominant eye or not? Can you flutter your eyes just coquettishly, so your strobe
Yep.
light effect of the eyes, or just squinting and lowering amounts of light getting into your eyes before you jump forward and just close your eyes or blindfold somebody and get them to do movements through the room. But the stuff that you're brought up in regards to fall prevention, Gary Gray with the Gray Institute, his lunge matrix is phenomenal in going from your base of support, traveling somewhere, and then relocating somewhere else, and being able to stop on a dime, or however. Can you do it with arm reaches? Can you do it low, like you're picking things off the ground, whether it's your grandkids' toys or the pet cat or whatever it is? All those are phenomenal. We also incorporated walking down the hallway of the hospital, going forward, going sideways, crossing over like you would do karaoke in an aerobic room,
Yep.
and then walking backwards. And can you do it with exaggerated steps? Just make novel movements so they have to respond. And we had Snellen charts and eye-hand coordination. We got those fun blaze pods that light up and you tap them, all
Uh-huh.
that fun stuff. And the beautiful thing, Dan, is that when you put all that together, it people are laughing, and they're having a good time and they're happy. And that is one thing that kind of rings continually true for me, is that at the end of the workout, people should be inspired to go do something other than go lay down on a couch.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
They, they
Yeah.
should not feel exhausted. They
Well,
should feel
I
inspired.
I always point out, fun is the beginning of functional, right? So, I mean, I know there is some level to the reality of exercises, some work, and not everybody is an exercise enthusiast, but there's no reason why our fitness programs can't be fun and make people laugh and have a good time, right? I mean, that should be part of it. I do think the socialization aspect for people as they get older is so important, which is why I think small group and large group training is a phenomenal format. I think too many people think, oh, well, if you're training seniors, you got to train them one on one.
No.
Why? Who says? Based on what? So I think the social aspect is as powerful an aspect, the fun dynamic. And you're absolutely right. Our fitness programs should be empowering and leading you to go do other stuff in life. I always say we want to put you on a trajectory of aging that's going to get you more active, more out there doing things, maybe even taking on new things you never thought about, like take out a new sport like pickleball, or finally learn to play tennis, or whatever. I don't care what it is. It's whatever you enjoy doing, right? But go do it now because we've trained you for it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're in the gym so you can go do life. You're not in the
Yeah.
gym because that's your life. You're in the gym so
Honestly,
you can go do stuff, So now, should the gym be fun? Yes, but it's also work. I mean, I always say at the end of the day, I say, look, people brush their teeth because they want to keep their teeth, not because brushing their teeth is fun, right? But we do certain behaviors, health things, because it serves us in other areas of our life. And so your fitness should give you more freedom, should allow you to travel more. I mean, I've had some people who are like, we just come in and train 3 times a week because we want to keep going to Europe every year for the rest of our lives. And we know if we do this, not only will we go to Europe, but we won't be the people that stay on the bus on the tour, right? We'll be the people that get off and explore every aspect of this European tour. And I'm like, that's awesome. If that's your reason that you train, great. That in and of itself is a fantastic reason. So people want to keep doing stuff. And so what we're doing with them in the gym should drive that, should motivate that, should empower that. When sometimes we even create challenges, right? And encourage people, hey, what are you going to do in the next year with your training, right? Like, what's your big goal? What are you aspiring to? And people start posting those things. Oh, I'm going to, we had clients go to Everest. Their goal was to go to base camp. They're like, we're not summiting Everest, but we want to get to base camp. Like, great. Well, we're training you for that. And people take all kinds of trips and they do things with their grandkids and, they do certain competitions and I still want a horseback rider. I mean, whatever it happens to be. So not only should fitness be functional, but it should be fun and it should be serving all the other things you want to do in life.
that's awesome. I'm just right on board with you for that whole thing. I don't mind when people, go their separate ways from my facility because they have encountered interests in their life that they're pursuing, that we got them to a point where now the world is out there waiting for them and they don't have the shackles of inactivity and deconditioning to keep them down. And you've done something to inspire them to go out and explore something new and different, whether it's, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I don't
Right.
care. Go have a fun time. Just know I'll always be here to support you whenever you want to come back and do some stuff, or if you just leave the nest completely. I've done my job, and I love that. So
That's going to happen. And it in the Midwest, it certainly happens more so because people get to a certain age and they're like, I'm getting the heck out of here. I'm going to Florida or Arizona or California or somewhere where I can be active outdoors. We had a client couple who were Purdue professors, and they trained with us because they were super active and enthusiasts and cyclists. And they're like, we train with you so we can go on all these adventures. I mean, they would go to France and cycle 30 to 50 miles a day from one 5-star chalet to a castle to, like amazing vacation, but physically active. And he got to about 70 years old and he needed to have his hip replaced and he wanted to keep downhill skiing. They had a ski in, ski out condo in Steamboat Springs. And he's like, I really enjoy skiing with my grandkids and I want to keep doing this. And I said, you should be able to. Once you get this hip replaced, you're going to be pain free and you're going to have you've got all the functional ability you need. And sure enough, he did. He went back to skiing. And about a year later, when his wife retired from Purdue, he's like, we're going to go out to Steamboat Springs and see how we like it. I was like, yeah, I'm never going to see you again. There's no way you're coming back. And sure enough, they have not come back because they can do stuff there in the wintertime and the summertime and they're active and that's great, right? We gave them all the tools they needed over the 5 years that we trained them to realize if they continue to train, they can keep doing all the stuff they want to do, from downhill skiing to cross country skiing to hiking and biking and all the stuff they want to do. And that's what I want to do when I get into my 70s. That'd be super cool to downhill ski with my grandkids.
honestly, nothing more rewarding than encouraging and guiding somebody into that position and watching them thrive. So, Functional Aging Institute, you go to your website and you've got several things that you can offer fitness professionals as well as general population, but fitness professionals in effect. I just Ryan Glatt's a friend of mine, colleague of mine, and he turned me on to his brain health trainer certification. And online, went through it. Boy, talk about a lot of information. I mean, that's drinking from a fire hydrant for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But it got me through COVID. I'll tell you that. Anytime I had some downtime, I'm online learning, and there's some great information on there. And in terms of how to get some cognitive processes, executive function, just how to stimulate the brain through different forms of movement. What else do you guys do with Functional Aging Institute? What other things do you offer?
Well, our goal is to offer courses and education in just about every domain of aging. And so we have a model that we call the 6 domains of functional aging. And basically, the brain health trainer fits the cognitive piece of that, right? And so we have strength training courses that fit the musculoskeletal piece, and we have a couple of balance courses that fit the balance segment. And we have some neuromuscular courses that fit the neuromuscular segment. And so the functional aging specialist is sort of our core foundational certification, where if a personal trainer said, "Hey, I really want to be a specialist at training people over 50, that's where you start. But then from there, you can branch out into, "Hey, I want to train people for speed and power." Well, then take our power training course. And I want to train people for, if you're really working with a lot of clients over 70 and balance is a big issue, we've got the complete balance guide and we've got the balance matters course. So we've got over 20 courses now on just about every topic what it comes to in terms of training people as they age. So everyone's a little different. Some people we work with, they train a lot of people who are really, really active and fit in their 60s. And then I talk to somebody else and they're like, "My clients really aren't that fit and they're not that functional. They're more like the 75 to 85-year-old semi-frail person," right? Like, I'm trying to keep them off the walker, right? So it's a different functional need and a different range of client. And we've got courses really for all of that. And so we want to be the CEU provider and content education provider for people that are trained in this population. And all our courses are CEU approved by the other organizations as well, like ACSM and NASM and ACE. And but for many trainers, FAI has sort of become their home. If their dominant client is a senior or is someone over the age of 60, they're getting certified through us and they're getting most of their education through us because that's where they're living. I mean, those are the clients they're dealing with. And so we've got the courses and education for them. In addition to that, we've got live events, workshops, our annual conference. So those are always options too. I know some people are tired of online learning, so I get it. If you want to do a live workshop, look for that too. So we've got one in August, we've got one in September. We've got certainly our annual conference in June as well.
Fabulous. I love getting back in person. I mean, it's been something. It's been a nice thing to continually learn, no matter what the vehicle is. But like you were mentioning about the socialization importance of being with others, regardless of the age and regardless of the situation, it's just be nice to get back in person for sure. Well, Dan, this has been great. I really, the time you shared here and the information and experience has been fantastic. I'll make sure that I put all the contact information down below, but what is the easiest way to look at Functional Aging Institute and connect with you?
Well, the two simple ways are our website, functionalaginginstitute.com. You can see our upcoming webinars, our upcoming events, workshops, all of our courses, and then contact@functionalaginginstitute.com. That's our email. Celia checks that every day, my executive assistant, and I check it probably every third day. So if you have a question for me, contact@functionalaginginstitute.com. I'll definitely see it. It'll come to me, and that'd be great. Love to chat more. If you got specific questions, how we can help you. Those are the two simplest ways.
Fantastic. Well, that's great, Dan. Thank you so much for being on. Well, that brings this episode of the RockFit Files to a close. Thanks, Dan Ritchie and the Functional Aging Institute, for coming on, sharing what you're doing with seniors. If you happen to be somebody in the third round of life and you want some more information on how to train, of course, you can contact us here, but also look up Dan in FAI. Until next time, have yourself a great week, and we'll see you soon.